I completely alienated myself from first year college. I did the music industry arts program at Fanshawe in London, which was great. I just remember the second day or something like that. And one of the teachers during our music production class, we were just like chatting about music that we liked. And he offhanded just was like, and are there any Nickelback fans in the room? And like everyone chuckled, and I had my hand raised.
No,
and
but
so
you should, if
nobody.
you like them, you should.
That's
totally,
brave, man.
Yeah.
Nobody.
That's brave.
Nobody. Well, I didn't think I would be the only one. I was like, oh boy. Okay.
No, but they
So-
have lots of fans, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just
course,
they're just
it's-
not vocal,
Sure.
or maybe they are, but just at the concerts.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
you
don't
know,
really
it is
hear
kind of
about
like being a Trump supporter, I guess, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like, no one really wants to admit that in a very liberal city like Toronto, right?
Yeah.
But
Comparing-
obviously, there's people even in our own city that are probably supporters of Trump, right?
and Nickelback.
Let
Nickelback,
it be known that I am in no way a Trump supporter.
Never made it as a wise man. I couldn't cut it as a poor man stealing. Tired of living like a blind man. I'm sick aside without a sense of feeling. And this is how you remind me. This is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. And this time I'm mistaken for letting you a heart worth breaking.
Welcome to another episode of This Broken Mixtape, the podcast that rewinds and presses play on the soundtrack to your life. I'm Justin Lee.
I'm Jeff Wu.
It should come as no surprise to our listeners that Jeff and I both share a fondness for the cassette tape. Invented by Philips in 1962, the cassette tape went on to become the leading music format in the 80s, exceeding vinyl in sales soon after the emergence of the Walkman. When I first made the switch from tape to CD in 1993, it was mainly for the convenience and promise of superior sound. But like vinyl, there's a romantic notion behind the cassette. As a young teenager, I would spend hours looking at the album art, as well as reading the liner notes and lyrics in hopes of uncovering hidden clues about the enigmatic rock and hip-hop acts that I would consume. And since it takes time to skip tracks, you're almost forced to listen to songs you normally wouldn't. And as a result, you give music the time and patience it often deserves. And then there's the mixtape. Our listeners know that we revere the mixtape as an art form of sorts. It takes a certain level of creativity, finesse, and diligence to compile a great mixtape. You're not just some asshole with a Spotify account and 10 minutes to spare. Which brings us to Dupe Shop, Canada's first retail shop exclusively devoted to the cassette tape. We're here with Malin Johnson, manager of the Dupe Shop in Toronto's Bloor West area. Welcome to the show, Malin.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we have a lot to talk about today. First off, we just want to know a little bit about the Dupe Shop. How did you guys get started? And really what gave the owners, I guess, the balls and the foresight to realize that this is something that music fans really were looking for?
For sure. Well, the owners really have huge cojones for being such tycoons. They've been in the industry now for 30 some odd years, manufacturing not only cassettes but also the entire physical media spectrum. Everything from print media to DVDs, CDs, Blu-rays, analog media technologies has been on the cutting edge of providing folks with industry standard physical media all the way along. So yeah, I mean, the fact that opening up the retail shop is a very unique idea for the company, but when it comes to manufacturing cassettes and manufacturing CDs, that's something that's just been in the blood of this company ever since the get-go. So yeah, I mean, the retail front, what we wanted to do was cater to the community that we've been working with for the last 30 years, and having the ability to broaden the demographic for the cassette in specific is really the name of the game. Is like, if we want to push this revival, if we want to push this this momentum that has been picking up the last couple of years with cassettes themselves. Yeah, this is the way to do it, 100%. Yeah, I started out. I am an audio engineer. I started out cutting records with an old partner of mine out of a record store here in town, and Duplication came along and said, "Hey, we're going to be opening up this new shop. The retail front. We really like that you're cutting records. Would you like to come cut records in this new retail shop? By the way, the retail shop is going to be a cassette store and also a production house. So we do a good amount of production here. So it was at that point that I said this would be so much fun. Oh my God, yeah, let's do it. It was at that point that I sort of got pulled into the cassette manufacturing side of things, and so I'm still here cutting records. We have a lathe cutting machine from the 50s, very, very archaic machine, but man, it cuts amazing sounding stuff. So we do that. We do the cassettes here as well. It's funny to go back to the assholes with their Spotify playlists.
And I say that in jest. So, like, obviously, everyone makes playlists, right?
I happen to be one of those assholes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm definitely one of those assholes. Apple Music, but same rigmarole. I actually, it is our responsibility to not be, what do you call that, conundrum, against these people. This is the way of the future, and you have to accept it. And the way that we found to do that is to embrace it in the sense of, okay, I know you've got your Spotify playlist. Why don't you do something different and cool with that Spotify playlist? Like put it onto a cassette tape. So we have it's $15. You come in with your Spotify playlist on your phone, you cut it onto a tape, and then you can give that mixtape. You can design J cards, do the full artwork like you did and I did when we were all kids. You can make a physical copy of that now with your Spotify playlist. So it's almost coming full circle in that sense.
Sure. And that's interesting because I've kind of found in our research that a lot of people who are buying cassettes now aren't necessarily, the 35 plus crowd. It's more so the younger kids, right? Like millennials.
You bet.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they gravitate towards this somewhat archaic format?
I think a lot of it is to do with the it's the same thing with the whole vinyl revival. A lot of it is to do with exploring what the artist is doing outside of just the music, because every artist every musician that isn't just a musician. They work really hard on their artwork that goes with their music. They have other facets of making artwork and that sort of thing. The cool thing about the cassette is that it allows you to have so much jam-packed into one package. So not only do you get the physical media, the actual cassette, you get to choose the color of the cassette, which even vinyl is really tough to do. I know they have color options, but that can range in pricing from all over the map.
Just to sort of interrupt here,
sure.
Did you by chance have the Ninja Turtles soundtrack when you were a kid?
No, I didn't.
Because that was the first time I ever saw the color cassettes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could get it in 4 different colors.
Oh, get out.
After each turtle, so you can get the orange for Raphael.
That's Michelangelo.
Or Michelangelo, yeah. Sorry. People are going to show me
Donatello
after.
is purple.
Purple.
Yeah.
Leonardo, blue.
Yeah, Leonardo's blue.
Yeah, and I just remember like wanting them all 4 of them, but my parents would be like, "You're insane. This is the same tape. Like, we're not buying all 4 for you." Yeah.
No. That's totally true. I mean, nowadays, I know here at the Dupe Shop, we offer you can come in and like essentially just pick out of the bin what color and style of mix. Mm-hmm. I think the on the website, if you want to create your own not only mixtape but like a full cassette package, manufacturing package, duplication package, you have something. The range is like 1 to 1 million, I think of different options that you can choose while you're building your packages, whether it be the length of tape or the style of tape. You know, if it's a Type 1 or a Type 2 tape, the cassette shell, the cassette Norelco case that the cassette goes inside, or if you don't want to do a case, you can do an O card that you would see like the old Kiss singles go in. I think Madonna did one, and all the hitters. So yeah.
Okay. And in terms of like when bands do like a run of tapes,
Sure.
typically like how many do they ask for?
Order? Yeah, it totally varies. I mean, of course, the more you do, the bigger the price breaks are. But generally, like a lot of bands who are just starting out on their first tour, they don't have a huge budget to throw down on, you know, a couple hundred tapes. So what they'll do is like a run of 50. So we see a lot of that. Again, it varies completely wherever the band's mindset is. But usually they'll come in and say, hey, we have a budget of $200. What can we get for $200? And so then we'll sit down with them and figure out exactly what they want. And then that dictates what they're going to be putting forth in terms of quantity. But yeah, I would say like the average budget is like between $200 and $400 for cassettes. That you know, I see anyway.
Okay. And I know you guys also sell cassettes, both old and new. What's your selection like here?
Yeah, no, so it's really cool. So again, coming back to when we started the Dupe Shop as a cassette retail store, we were like, what are we going to be doing? Because we are a manufacturer, we have a direct line to the community. And being one of the only manufacturers in Canada, let alone all of North America, we do have that very, very unique point of stating as like, as you're filling out your order, at the very bottom there's a checkbox, would you like to sell cassettes at our retail store location? So not only do we get this huge influx of and of course bands are more than happy to get their stuff put into a retail store that's on a downtown Toronto location. So not only do we have that whole demographic that we're aspiring to, when we first opened, we were bombarded by Now Magazine and Exclaim and Vice, who are all excited about us opening up this retail store location, right? And so, and we made sure that we said in the interviews, it's like, we can buy cassettes. We want the community to come in and like sell us their old collections and that sort of thing, which kind of caters to the other demographic that is, still using cassettes and wants to keep their cassette collection up. They come in here, they don't really know what is going on with the new cassette community. They're really, really into like their old cassettes. But while they're in here, they get to learn too. So it's kind of cross-feeding both the new generation and the old generation, which is snowballing into, I mean, it's crazy. People coming in here who had never touched a cassette before in their entire life are now picking up these cassettes and being like, oh, this is so cool. And they're coming in every week, every other week, just buying whatever's coming in new. It's exciting. I never thought of that when we were first starting of the type of community that we'd be building. It's been the best part so far.
Awesome. So I know like cassettes have seen like a 74% spike last year. So it's up to, last year they sold 129,000 units, which is still like a drop in the bucket compared to vinyl, right?
Sure.
But you could tell that there is some excitement, there's some momentum building for cassettes. Do you think this is just purely nostalgia and novelty sake, or is this actually a real thing? Like, are cassettes really coming back, or is it just a lot of hype?
Sure. I think it's the same question about vinyl. The bottom line is, the CD sort of pushed all those things aside because it was still a physical medium. It was still an ability for the person, the fan, to open up and like have a fold out poster or have a piece of artwork that that spoke to you outside of the music as you're listening to the music, or even when you're not listening to the music. It still offered that avenue. And as for the rest of my life, I know for sure I'm always going to be more attracted to, but personally, I'm going to be always more attracted to a physical medium. I love my Apple playlist. I love my Spotify account. Those things, I can't live without them. But if I love the record, I'm going to see what the artist is trying to tell me. So I'm going to go out and buy the record. And I'm going to go out and buy if they do a cassette, which they have been more and more. Third Man is just finished doing a big chunk of re-releases with us, which I'm really, really excited. I'm not sure if they're out yet, so mum's word, but
nice.
yeah, they're going to be having some cassettes on the shelves shortly too. So,
I mean, for you personally, what do you like about this type of format?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, yeah, it's just like the ability to, I mean, just the sound, if I may, just like opening up the cassette, pulling the cassette out, and like putting into the player. I don't have a player.
That's how we start every episode, actually, just the sound effect of a cassette being inserted into the tape machine, and then just rewinding and press play.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, that in and of itself is the sound of my youth.
Absolutely.
Right. I had an old Isuzu Trooper, which is this like clunky 4x4, and I remember after we parked it because the frame rotted out and all these things, the radio still worked in it. And a very, very bizarre thing is the radio had a record function in it. So I got to
That's
I got
amazing.
to put tapes in there and record my mixtapes. That was the first time I ever like recorded mixtapes. I was like, what am I gonna? I was playing cars. I was like, this actually works in this car. This is so cool. So I would like listen to my my local radio station, who would play because of CanCon, would play independent and Canadian artists from midnight until 6 a.m. sort of thing. And so I would record and listen to all my, the new and exciting and some of my most nostalgic and favorite bands of the time. But yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you trace like the first cassette you ever bought?
First cassette I ever bought. It's gonna sound bad. I don't think I've ever purchased a cassette.
Okay.
I think every cassette I've ever had is just like one that I've made or commentated on or done something with, in like made a mixtape. I don't think I've ever physically. I did. Okay, so the cassettes that I did buy a little bit more recently, in 2012, I was with a band, and we got out of the blue, we got signed to this record label down in Alabama. And through that, we had some connections to the promoters at Fest, which is a big punk rock music festival down in Gainesville, Florida. And they said, we would love you to come play the show. And I was like, oh, so cool. But then we started sweating. It's like, oh, no, we need merch. And so I went to Valley Village, and I got these old tapes of, what were they at the time? I think it was Bing Crosby, just like a lot of like weird jazz and folk stuff. And what I did is I taped up the tabs at the top, which allowed you to record them, and then I would record on one side our record, and then the B side would be the original material, whether it be Bing Crosby or Madonna or whatever. And then I would design the J card. I would cut it in half, and half of the J card would be my man, the band, and the other half would be the original Bing Crosby. And so I would say, oh, we put out a split together.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that's as I think that's as close to ever buying a cassette as I ever got. But
how about for CDs? If we must talk about CDs.
Oh, if we knew. Oh, gosh, no. CDs, yeah. I mean, we had Music World. That was a little bit more when I was in public school and high school. I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. So that was, CDs were definitely my jam, and Napster. I was part of the reason that everything else shut down too. So
I think I contributed to that.
Yeah, we all did.
My bad.
Yeah, I mean, Chili Peppers, love the Chili. I grew up. It's funny. I grew up in a jazz environment. My father was a big Miles Davis and Coltrane fan, as my mom as well, and so we'd listen to those classic records on vinyl. And my sister, who is about 10, 15 years older than me. She like moved up and went to the city, and she would every year send me Big Shiny Tunes. And oh boy, that changed my life. I was like, what is this stuff? And this is like pop music. I've never really heard pop music before. And I was like really, really young at the time. And that's what got me into more modern rock and roll. And so yeah, Chili Peppers is, I don't know if that's an embarrassing thing or not, but I
mean, everyone's music taste, and, you know, when they're a kid is somewhat embarrassing, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, at least the Chili Peppers are still around right now.
Yeah,
Like, they're still relevant.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
How about for Canadian bands, like these sort of edge fest bands? Which ones were you into?
Sure. Yeah. A big one. So I remember one of the mixtapes that I made was this artist from Timmins, Ontario, named Lights.
Okay.
Who's she's pretty big.
Yeah.
She's still. I think she just came out with a new record.
Yep.
And I remember like listening to her first single on like, because they had to do the CanCon thing, right? I remember listening to her first single in the truck, and I was like, oh, I have to record this.
You've been making mixtapes since you were a kid. What, like, when you compiled a mixtape, was it so much? Was there an actual set like theme that you were working with, or was it just kind of, this is what I want to put in here, these are the songs I like?
I usually just went with the radio, you know, whatever the DJ was doing, and then as soon as the DJ started talking, I cut him off, and it was me that talked. So
Okay.
I was just like, hey, you know, and I talked about the weather and the fact that my dog was with me and he was wagging his tail.
And these mixtapes were just for you to consume, or did you actually ever make mixtapes for other people?
No, I grew up in a very, very resolute part of Northern Ontario. My closest neighbor was about 30 clicks down the road, so I was very much a child of my own imagination. I didn't really start doing the mixtapes for other people outside of my parents until much later in life, when I got a girlfriend and stuff. And I was like, oh, I think she would find that cute, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if you have like a memorable story, we love hearing that kind of stuff on the show.
Yeah, I have. I mean, so a lot of my mixtape stuff was, as I said, like a little bit more later on in the game. It's the I used to do mixed CDs. I went for an internship down in Chicago back in 2010, 11. And it was great. I met my current girlfriend down there at the time. And so a big thing for us, because I moved back to Canada after the internship, big thing for us is we would send letters back and forth, and we did these mixed CDs. We'd send each other all the time, which was really cute. I hope she doesn't listen to this. I'm planning on making her a mixtape too. So, but yeah, it was like mixed CDs that we send back, just of like music that we liked, and you know, just standard mixtape stuff, I guess.
But it's always like there's different approaches when you're making a mixtape for your girlfriend. Like you could either just put on stuff that you like, and then, you know, hopefully that she'll like, or just songs that you absolutely know that she'll be into. It was, and sometimes you want to like test it a little bit, so you play stuff that's like maybe not so, you know, predictable, but you're like, I hope she likes this song, kind of thing.
You've hit like a third of everything that I did.
Okay, yeah.
Like every mixtape was a little bit of like, I love this song, I think you might like this song, and let's see if we can like this song together, sort of thing.
What are some bands that she absolutely hated, or were there any?
Hated?
Yeah.
I mean, like Screamo. It was funny. I went through a little Screamo phase in high school. Children of Bodom. It was a pretty dark period of my life. I wore like a leash. So I think I may have sent her one of those songs, but I didn't get a response, so I was like, let's not do that ever again. So definitely, but she's great because she has not only a lot of tastes that I'm into, but a very, very eclectic taste of music as well. I'm into everything from hip hop to jazz to rock and roll to country, and she's very much the same way too. I don't think she's as much of a Nickelback fan as I am, but That's okay. That's okay. Nobody is.
Is that something that your friends rag on you a lot?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. But you know what? I don't. It was
Make
so
your
funny.
case for them. Where I'm curious. I mean, I'm not.
Man.
I'm not one of those people that absolutely thinks they're shit because they do know how to craft a tune, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a personal fan, but I mean, I understand why. Some people might be into them.
Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend invite me to a Nickelback concert, and I denied her. I was like, no,
The ex-girlfriend.
I can't. But like, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just couldn't see myself. I was trying to picture myself going, and it's like I would totally go with her to a concert, but it's just I couldn't.
It's
see
a
it
shit
happening.
show.
Yeah.
It's a huge shit show. I mean, it's great because like it's all like country, a little bit older, but like country hicks, and that's a bad thing to say. Maybe, yeah, I didn't see very many city folk there. We'll put it that way. A lot of folks had driven in from outside of town. One of my favorite stories, I completely alienated myself from first year college. I did the music industry arts program at Fanshawe in London, which was great. I just remember the second day or something like that. And one of the teachers during our music production class, we were just like chatting about music that we liked. And he offhanded just was like, and are there any Nickelback fans in the room? And like everyone chuckled, and I had my hand raised.
No,
And
but
so
you should, if
nobody.
you like them, you should.
That's
totally-
brave, man.
Yeah.
Nobody.
That's brave.
Nobody. Well, I didn't think I would be the only one. I was like, oh boy, okay.
No, but they
So-
have lots of fans, right? Like it's just
course,
they're just
it's-
not vocal,
Sure.
or maybe they are, but just at the concert.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
you
don't
know,
really
it is
hear
kind of
about
like being a Trump supporter, I guess, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like, no one really wants to admit that in a very liberal city like Toronto, right?
Yeah.
But
Comparing-
obviously, there's people even in our own city that are probably supporters of Trump, right?
and Nickelback.
Let it be known that I am in no way a Trump supporter as a Nickelback
I will
fan.
say though, if you did a Venn diagram of Nickelback fans and Trump supporters, there would be a huge intersector there, right?
Oh boy.
Not saying that you're a Trump supporter, but
No, but it's really, really cool because I feel like I have a hard time saying no to music. As I said, I went to in the music production school. I have an ear that's trained for making stuff to sound big and beautiful, which all of their records do. Whether or not you're into the music itself, they are professionally recorded. They sound like the guitars sound brilliant, the drums sound brilliant, the vocals they're rich. They're all I really come at it from a technical standpoint as well as an appeal standpoint as well. So I mean, which is why I like such a variety of styles of music in that sense. So yeah.
So as a guy that's went to school for production
Sure.
and all that kind of stuff, how are you listening to music?
As I said, like I can't live without my Spotify playlist. I can't buy into the whole Pono thing. The lossless audio, the FLAC. If I'm so fortunate as to be at a recording studio with an acoustically treated room and like a beautiful set of monitors and a beautiful Bryston amp and like a really high-end Burl Audio A to D converter, and I import an MP3 versus a WAV file. Yeah, you're gonna hear the difference. Definitely. If you're gonna import a CD and then a lossless 24-bit 96K file, I'm not gonna hear the difference. I'm gonna be the first one to say. And it's the same thing about, I don't know, there's different levels of snubbery, I think, in the audio engineering. I like to be a little bit more true to self and say, okay, I hear the difference because of X, Y, and Z. 90% of the time I'm in my 05 Echo that has one blown speaker in it, and I'm listening to music on there. I'm listening to the songs, I'm listening to the production. I'm not listening to digital aliasing. And so a mixed MP3 CD works totally fine for me. I did get just recently a really nice high-end pair of earbuds. I enjoy quite a bit because they have a little bit more high-end information. Again, you shoot me a wave or versus a 320 MP3, I'm not
I
going
can't hear
to...
the difference between wave and 320.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it's all subjective, you know. There's my favorite one is this shootout they did between really really high end speakers, and they brought in a couple of people with, you know, these opinions about $30,000 cables versus coat hangers, and so they tested them and they put the speakers up to the coat hangers and played them a song, and then hooked the speaker up to the $30,000 cables and played them a song, and half of them got it wrong.
Yeah.
So you tell me.
I think cables is one of those things that for sure it's like that doesn't make a difference.
The cool thing about like a good, I mean, we're getting a little all over the place here. Good thing about a good cable is that, you know, it's durable, so you can whip it around, and, you know, especially in being an audio engineer, that's super important, especially in here at the Dupe Shop when we're manufacturing stuff all day, and I need quick and efficient workflows, whether I'm doing a transfer, whether I'm doing a dupe, or whether I'm doing a rip of any sort, or bringing mediums back and forth. I need to make sure my cables are nice and sturdy, so which is why I spend a little bit more on cables than I think the other person, but I don't do it because I think they sound different. That's for sure. So long story short, Spotify is great for me.
So I mean, you mentioned music snobbery. One thing I've always wondered is, you know, I've recently been in the market for a Walkman, and I'm looking for this one particular Walkman I had as a teenager that was like, my sister brought it back from Asia when she was there, and it was, you know, like one of those ones that are super sleek, size of a cassette, and it would fast forward right to the next track. And it would also be auto reverse, so you can play both sides at any time without actually having to take it out and flip it back in. So I'm thinking, like, if and I've already talked to some friends about this, if I walk around with this Walkman, I mean, people are gonna automatically think I'm an asshole, right? Like, once they realize I'm playing cassettes, and like, what, are you from the past? Like, are you?
I really don't think so. I think you're. It's funny with cassettes, especially. You know, I bike a lot, and so when I'm biking down the street, I'll see young kids with cassettes, and I get excited. I'm like, oh yeah, that's sweet. And I see old people with cassettes too, and I don't have any negative affliction in that.
But
sense.
you're somewhat biased, you know. I mean, like this is
True.
like your thing, right?
Maybe I'm the worst person to ask that question to. No, I don't think necessarily any snubbery. I think when people come in and say cassettes sound better, that might be a little bit objectional, and that might be, you know, whatever. I'm not going to advocate that cassettes sound better than MP3. The cool thing about cassette is tape, and you get tape saturations with cassettes. And I, as an audio engineer, I get all warm and fuzzy with that sort of stuff. But if I want to hear what the producer and the engineer of the record are doing, I'd probably want to listen to it on a little bit of a tighter medium, like CD, like DVD, like vinyl, even before I go out and buy the cassette. But the cassette is cool because it's just like a very unique package too, right? So, I don't see any snubbery. That's not with cassette, not yet anyway. Just wait till cassettes become uber popular, and then it'll be like, those hipsters and their Walkmans.
Sure. But they are already starting to carry them at like places like Urban Outfitters and things like that. So I mean, I'm sure it's like sort of an inevitable backlash at some point. But
hopefully,
hopefully.
I think if you attach it on your belt and you kind of wave it around, then maybe people won't like that.
Yeah, like if you
old
just
80s commercials.
Yeah, if you take on the whole aesthetic, right?
with
and you've
the
got
fanny
like,
pack.
Yeah.
The fanny pack will probably do it for me, actually. Now that we mention it.
So I know that you guys used to sell these sort of mystery mixtapes that were just, you know, in a container, and you just randomly choose one, and, you know, there's no track listings. You just kind of go home, listen to it. What kind of stuff would you guys throw in there? Like, was it all done by the employees of the Dupe Shop?
Yeah. It would be just so how that actually started was we would do, and we still do. We have one coming up closer to the end of the month. I think beginning of November. We're looking at scheduling a mixtape party. So what we do is we have the shop open late one day, and it's just an excuse to have a little bit of a staff party too. But we like to open up to the public, and folks want to come in and they want to do a mixtape exchange. I would love to do that. Yeah, so that's primarily it. Is not making a playlist necessarily with anyone in mind. I personally like to build my playlists as telling a story. It's hard for me not to sometimes pull an entire album on a mixtape, but I like to do that. I like to tell a story, and whether it be one of my favorite bands nowadays, singer-songwriters, there's this band called Dawes out of California. I'll generally open a mixtape up with them because they're beautiful storytellers, and it's a really, really cool segue into whatever story I want to tell on my cassette. So that's how I do it. I know that the technician here, Jesse, he's a big fan of 80s era stuff, so he'll throw in 80s style hip hop and pop punk and the sort of the kindlings of the empires of genres that we know nowadays and recognize so easily. Garrett, who is he takes care of a lot of the sales stuff and a lot of the production that goes on here. He might be joining us later. He, I know, is a big fan of a little bit more contemporary independent artist stuff. So labels from across Canada and across North America, or bands rather, or labels, just independent artists, stuff like that, and just cool sounds and really, really unique sounding mixtapes. So that's him. He's also a big Madonna fan. I think I've had a couple of his mixtapes with Madonna on it. But I mean, to each their own. To each their own. Yeah.
Jeff and I would love to join you guys for the.
Oh
mixtape
my
party.
goodness! Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course. And anyone who's listening, I'll get a firm date. Look on the Dupe Shop social page. We're on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitters, and all that jazz. So
Great.
Awesome. Anything that you might not have mentioned that you want to say now, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, so I can tell a little bit about the business. I don't know if that's something
absolutely.
of interest.
Yeah.
So,
Or even the event that just happened and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We have a loaded month this month. October we have I think a show, if not two shows, every weekend. So it's going to be a very, very loaded month, with Cassette Store Day also happening on October 14th. We're going to be having a live event. It is our 1 year anniversary too, so it's kind of like a double celebration. We're going to have lots of snacks and independent artists and performers and tape DJs and drinks and you name it. So come on down. It's going to be all weekend, 14th and 15th of October.
Great.
So that's going to happen. Yeah. Also, too, if you have old cassette collections yourselves, you want to bring in or even trade in, you guys are more than welcome to do that as well. Dupe Shop is, as I mentioned, it is the retail front to Analog Media Technologies. Analog Media has been around since, Analog Media's been around since the early 1800s, but Analog Media Technologies has been around since the 80s. They started out in Montreal and still have their warehouse there and manufacturing plant. We also have an office up in North York. That's where all the really, really cool stuff happens. That's where the tapes are actually manufactured and loaded up with the correct amount of tape for whatever job it may be. We also have high-speed loaders up there. They're big industrial pneumatic machines. So, I mean, you think this sound is cool? Man, the whole thing is just and cassettes falling down, and it's nostalgia overload. So any of the other locations too are generally 9 to 5 or 10 to 6, doors open, so you can go check them out, or come on by here and check out the store and have some fun making cassettes.
Sounds great. I mean, I'm looking forward to Cassette Day.
Yeah.
You know, I've never attended before. This is the third year, is it?
This will be good. This is I'm not sure in the international realm. I think we're looking at like 5, 6,
Oh, wow,
if not
okay.
more years. But for us, it's going to be our 1-year anniversary.
Right.
We thought fitting last year that we should open up on Cassette Store Day because hey, why the heck not?
Sure.
So yeah, it's going to be our first anniversary being here, and it's been one hell of a year. I'm so excited to be continuing to do this for another, hopefully 10, 20 years.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. And thank you so much for being on our show. This is Malin Johnson, the manager of the Dupe Shop.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. And continue up the Broken Mixtape. I'm really excited.
Right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's it for this episode of This Broken Mixtape. Thank you for listening. If you like what we do, please be sure to subscribe, share, and rate our podcast. Also, you can find some of our episode-related Spotify playlists as well as other related goodies on our website, thisbrokenmixtape.com.
Join us next week where our guest will be multidisciplinary artist Lauren Puri.
Until next time.